As college baseball season nears, our good friend, the co-founder of 11.7, a college baseball podcast, in my opinion, the best college baseball podcast, and also the architect of SECunfiltered.com. He joins the show, Dimitri Kourtis. Dimitri, what's going on, my friend? Quick round of applause for you, by the way, because all the fine folks who are tuned in right now, whether it's YouTube, it's podcast, whatever, they've probably, most likely, been over to SECunfiltered.com. My friend, thank you for all of your hard work. One of the biggest reasons we're off hitting the ground running is because of the work you put in, laying the groundwork on the website, my man. So thank you for that. And what's going on, man? How you feel being back in the saddle, man? The offseason's officially over. We're talking college baseball, man. It feels good that opening day is just around the corner.
Hey, I feel great, man. I'm happy to be here. I guess you could say I was kind of helped build SEC Unfiltered gig going from the back end. Now I'm on the front end enjoying the fruit of your hard work. And so, yeah, here we are getting ready for another season of college baseball. I'm excited.
So, Dimitri, let's go ahead and get right into it. I know you and I were just talking off air. It's never too early to make predictions and projections. By the way, Dimitri, I don't envy anybody who publishes a field of 64 because I just don't like naming the top 16. I can handle that. But when you start talking about teams like Alabama State, Binghamton, Penn, Morehead State, like how you determine the 3 and the 4 seeds, God bless anybody who's taken on that task. But your boy Ben Upton, your co-host of 11.7, dropped his field of 64 projections. I know you were just taking a look at them. What are your takeaways? I'm sure you guys are going to talk about this on the show, but takeaways from who Ben has in his field of 64. The thing that jumped out to me, Dimitri, no Florida in the top 16. The preseason number 2 team in college baseball, not a regional host, going on the road to Bloomington in the Indiana region. I mean, thoughts on Ben's preseason field of 64? I mean, again, it's crazy until it isn't, though, to be fair.
I feel like I'm working at an agency doing some PR saving here. I got to save the damage done from this field of 64.
He's also got Georgia hosting a regional, Florida going on the road for a regional. So
yeah, no, I see that. I just pulled it up here. First of all, me and Ben, we love pushing buttons and kind of making hot takes. Of course, there's a time and place to be serious, but looking at this field of 64, and Ben loves doing crazy things. He texted me yesterday, should I release the field of 64? And I was like, dude, go for it. No one's gonna like it. You're not gonna make anybody happy, but go for it. Personally, I would never have Florida not being a top 16 host. Seeing Georgia as a 16 seed, whatever, fine. He took a leap of faith there. He knows something that other people don't know about Georgia, but Florida not being in there with arguably the best player in college baseball. They've got a full rotation. They've got a bullpen. They've got everything you need. It would take a monumental collapse for Florida to not be a top 16 seed. So, I mean, Tennessee at 3. I mean, I think Florida win the East. So you're telling me Florida. Now, I mean, 14 teams worse than Tennessee. That's pretty crazy to me.
Now, Dimitri, you guys also released, of course, this comes out from FanDuel. And speaking of Ben, and speaking of you guys, your influence in 11.7, the Golden Spikes Award, the preseason odds by FanDuel released. Ben then writes a piece on his favorites to win it, but more importantly states, hey, these are guys not on the list who don't have odds, who you should keep an eye on, and they should have odds. What was it, 24 hours later, FanDuel's going out, they're placing odds for an Ethan Petrie, which Gamecock Nation, of course, says thank you, but others as well. So it goes to show how much influence 11.7 has in the college baseball community. So congratulations to you and Ben. But when you look at the Golden Spikes Award, you mentioned Jack Caglione. That's a name at the top of the list, plus 500 to win that. Another SEC name, Tommy Tanks White at plus 1,400. Of course, you got Nick Kurtz at plus 600 at Wake Forest. You got J.J. Weatherholt plus 700 at West Virginia. You go down the list. When you looked at the Golden Spikes odds, by the way, Charlie Condon as well at plus 1,400 from Georgia. When you looked at those odds, we all know Jack Caglione's the favorite. He's the quote-unquote Shohei Ohtani of college baseball. But when you look at that outside of Caglione, who were some guys where you looked at the numbers and say, you know what, there's a lot of value there. I could see them putting together a Golden Spikes caliber season.
I mean, I'm sure you just kind of skipped over him, but Travis Bazana from Oregon State is kind of juicy right now. I think his odds from the time we posted our article, he was at plus 950. I'm sure he's right around there. Vance Honeycutt in North Carolina, he's one of my favorites because he can do it all. Defensively, offensively, on the base path, he can do it all. I'm really curious about this. I mean, the hype is all over receiver King, shortstop at Wake Forest. He transferred from D2 Wingate. So I need to see him play. I don't like to speak on people I haven't really seen play. I like to see them play and then create an opinion on them. And then, I mean, Braden Montgomery, he does the two-way thing. So if he figures it out on the mound, if he can create some sort of consistency, Schlossnagle will have him going back out there. His innings will go up. You create an impact on the mound, and while hitting, that's how you get into that Golden Spike play. And you know how it is in the SEC. If you're a top 20 guy offensively and top 20 guy on the mound, you're one of the best players in the country. So Montgomery could be a juicy play if you think he can turn it around this year. But a lot of these guys, it's just hard to say. Most of them are donations because it's just hard to win. You know how it is. It's hard to win the Golden Spike. Chase Burns, he could be, if he has a sub, we talked about this on Sunday night in our podcast. Chase Burns, if he has a sub 2 ERA, puts up a Chris Sale-like season in the ACC, goes 13-0, sub 1.5 ERA, the whole country's going to be watching this guy. He's going to be going to New York for the final, they're being a finalist. Yeah, so I'm a huge Dakota Jordan guy. If we're going to talk SEC here, the dude's got it all. He's got the power. He's got the athleticism. If he can continue to work on his ball to barrel or barrel to ball skill, and get that average up a little bit, that guy's going to wreak havoc on this conference this year. So yeah, those are just some names that I really like. Of course, we can go down the list all day long and talk about guys we like, but yeah.
Dimitri, I was just thinking, the more that I hear the name, we've had a couple conversations with some A&M folks, and you mentioned Braden Montgomery. And I mean, I think the two ways have an obvious advantage when it comes to winning this award, but this was a name not mentioned on the FanDuel odds. This was a name not mentioned. I'm surprised by you guys in regards to 5 players who didn't make the list of a real shot.
His last name started with an L.
It does start with an L. Did I gloss over his name? I feel like I had to. How was Jace Lavalette not on the list?
That's a great question, Chris.
6'6" center fielder that can just smash baseballs, and I think he had like 30 steals last year. Like, you talk about athleticism and power, and that's just a name that again, we've had a lot of conversations with some Aggies, but that seems like a guy to me that could really blow up this year.
Hey, and you're not wrong. You're not wrong. I think what it comes down to is Laviolette. How do you pronounce it? I've been saying.
I think it's Lavalette. I thought it was Lavalette. I don't even know.
Lavalette. Okay. He's probably a top 3 player on Texas A&M. He's probably a top 15. He's probably a top number, the best sophomore player 2025 class with Petrie. Personally, I like Petrie a little bit more, because you know how power plays this day and age of college baseball. You got to have power to be a dude. Of course, you can be a difference maker doing other things, but that's what it came down to. Because I mean, how hard is it for a sophomore to win the Golden Spike? Pretty hard. It's been done very few times. So I think that's what it comes down to. Doesn't mean we don't think he's good. No, we think he's great. We think he's really good. But if you're going to pick a guy from A&M with the potential, it's like drafting a guy who had that raw power, who's projectable. Montgomery, to me, is more projectable to win the Golden Spike than Lavalette. It's not a knock on him.
So, Dimitri, I've had a couple conversations with some different college baseball folks, and we're always talking about the top of the rankings, and these are teams that can make it to Omaha. I'm going to switch it up on you because the SEC is so deep. I mean, there's so many good teams, right? Who's going to stink in the SEC this year? Who's a team? I'm not asking you to throw anybody under the bus early or rile up a fan base before we even throw the first pitch. But, like, is there a team or a couple teams in the SEC that you're like, they just don't have it, right? I mean, I think Georgia, Missouri are the really easy candidates for this, but Ole Miss and Mississippi State were both terrible last year. So is it those four? Is there somebody else that maybe that has some hype that shouldn't have it? Like when you look at the bottom of the league, and the bottom of the SEC is good enough to beat anybody else, but somebody's got to lose games, right, Dimitri? Not everybody's going to go 18-12 in league play, 17-13. Somebody's going to go 8-22 in SEC play. When you look at the bottom of the league, who do you think of going into 2024?
I think Ole Miss is going to be terrible. I'm just going to say it. I don't think Ole Miss is going to be very good.
Not to cut you up, do you think so? Of the two Mississippi schools, you think Mississippi State's more likely to have that bounce back than Ole Miss?
For me, Mississippi State season relies on one thing: throwing strikes out of the bullpen. They've got to throw strikes. They were a disaster last year. I mean, he was starting pitching. Durangelo Sanger, we call it ambidextrous, amphibious. Some people like to make that joke. He's an X factor. If he improves, he got thrown to the wolves last year. I mean, you got put a freshman in the SEC on Friday night. You can't fault him for anything that happened. That's a really hard thing to do. You just got thrown in there with nobody behind him. So for me, Mississippi State bullpen is much better this year. They've got a lot of flamethrowers. Sanger should be better. You would assume he's going to improve. Colby Holcomb pumping 100. He's like 96, 99. Dude's got it. So throw strikes, and I think Mississippi State's got the offensive lineup. In that ballpark, they're going to score. So I think Mississippi State could be much better. Ole Miss might be more unexciting, just even keel team, but you know how that doesn't play in the SEC.
They're very transfer portal heavy. They are relying on a ton of portal pieces.
So with Georgia, but Georgia got good pieces. And Georgia,
I feel like Georgia, Dimitri's in a great spot where it's like they don't really have expectations, right? And I think it was Wes Goodwin, I think is his name, right? The pitching coach that came over. Wes Johnson. Okay, my bad. I think that was a great hire. I mean, that's as good a hire I think as you can get. So I think Georgia's in a really fun spot where it's like, man, in baseball, like the last thing you can do is press and be successful. And I mean, Georgia, they've got no reason to press. And when you got a piece like Charlie Condon to build around, I mean, that's a pretty good start.
So it's easy to pick on the teams that we think are going to be bad. Here's one team that I'm really not sure about yet, and it's Alabama. Whole new coaching staff. You're getting a guy coming from the Northeast. I think Rob Vaughn is awesome. He was awesome at Maryland. He knew how to build an offense. And you need offense in the SEC.
Fun stat for you, Dimitri, that Maryland has not lost a Big Ten series since 2021. So that's how good a job he did there.
And then pitching staff. They had a couple really high-end guys that were really good, but overall the staff, they had work to do. They were great. I liked them. But you know how it is, man. When you roll into and I'm an ACC guy more than the SEC guy, but the SEC is still the best. I think Alabama's going to struggle this year, and I think it's going to be a learning curve for that coaching staff. It could be a learning curve for some of the players they brought in with them, because you know how it is. Guys transfer out, new guys come in based on who the head coach is. So I think Alabama's going to struggle, and I could see Mississippi State finishing in front of Alabama this year. And that's a take, but I'm willing to stand on it right now.
So we look, Dimitri, at the D1 baseball preseason top 25. There's 6 SEC teams in the top 9. Let's start with that first group at 2, 3, 4, right? You've got Florida, LSU, and Arkansas, I believe is the order.
I think Arkansas 3, LSU
Arkansas 3, LSU 4. Okay, you're right. Yeah, Florida, Arkansas, LSU. Of those 3, who would you buy the most stock in, right? I think Florida, they've got this power-driven lineup. Jack Caglione, arguably best player in college baseball. And I mean, it's going to be a Sully staff. They're all going to throw 98 or what have you. They just reload every single year. It's a pitching factory in Gainesville. Arkansas's pitching staff will play second fiddle to no one, led by Hagen Smith. And then, I mean, LSU, you got to replace Paul Skeens and Dylan Cruz, but they're as loaded with talent as anybody in college baseball. So, but of those 3, do you like LSU to go back-to-back? Do you like Florida's power arms and power lineup? Or is it finally, my friend, the year of the Hog It's crazy to me to think they still have not gotten a College World Series title.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you saw the article we did about the top 20, the 25 years of super regional era. Arkansas is one of the best teams to not win a title. I mean, we all know they came so damn close in 2018 with Oregon State. But of those three teams, man, I like Arkansas the most. I think Florida is going to come out of the gate slow. And by slow, that can still mean, 15-6 record or something. I'm just throwing a number out there. I think on the mound, they'll be fine. I think it's going to be a little learning curve. You're going to see them losing to Jacksonville in one of these upcoming Tuesdays. It is what it is. And people are going to be like, oh my God, Florida sucks. Florida's not good.
That is a Florida tradition every year to lose midweeks in maddening fashion. Like they are 100% going to lose a midweek this year where they're up like 16-9 in the ninth inning and lose 17-16. It happens every year. Every year.
Unbelievable. It's unbelievable. I mean, you'll see a Florida Atlantic roll in. You'll see a Jacksonville. You'll see a North Florida, Bethune-Cookman. It's one of those.
I'm getting fired up just thinking about midweeks, man, because we love the weekend series, but it's just fun watching like the silliness that takes place on the midweek. It just when you got guys out there in the mound, they don't pitch a whole lot, right? Like you're playing with lineups, and you get some very weird results.
You're pushing the limits of depth in these pitching staffs when you get to 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th inning on a Tuesday night, or even if they have a twin bill and they play Wednesday, you're really pushing the limits of what these freshmen can do, and it gets ugly sometimes. But part of the learning. But anyway, back to Arkansas. They've got the pitching, they've got the offense. They're the guy I think he's coming from the West Coast for Arkansas. Shortstop is a Sacramento State guy. He's got some juice. He's got some of that swag. He's got some of that mojo. So I think Arkansas should be good on the mound. You know how it is. Kendall Diggs, they'll be down 2 in the ninth. Kendall Diggs going to bail them out with a 3-run homer. Probably one of the clutchest hitters in the SEC in the country. I mean, he does it every time. And then on the mound, they've got Hagen Smith. Tiger should be 100% healthy, ready to go. They got a workhorse from Texas Tech. What's his name? Molina. They've got depth on the mound. They've got everything they need. And I think I trust Arkansas the most. I think that's the key word. I trust them the most right now to be the best team in the SEC. Florida's ceiling is high. LSU's ceiling is high just as well. So that's where I'm going to put my trust right now, than Arkansas.
You know, Dimitri, it felt like a season ago that Paul Skeens and Dylan Cruz, and really Paul Skeens, when you talk about the faces of college baseball, those guys were it. Who do you think is going to be that guy this year? I mean, I know it's easy to say Jack Caglione. Do you think it's going to be him? Is it somebody else? Again, I'm not talking about who's going to win the Golden Spikes. I'm not talking about who the best player in college baseball is, although that typically helps. But is there a guy you think that becomes the face of the sport this year, whether it's player or coach?
So when I think of that, I usually think of some guy that's just wow factor. A couple years ago, it was, oh my God, what's his name from Paul, Joyce, Ben Joyce.
Yeah.
Was throwing 102, 103. He was kind of the face of baseball as a relief pitcher.
Most talked about player in college baseball for a while. Yeah. Yeah.
So when you think of face of college baseball, it's not always necessarily the best player, but it's just the guy that everyone it keeps wowing everybody on every night. So Chase Burns could be one of those guys that I'm talking SEC here. Chase Burns could be a guy that everyone tunes in on Friday nights. Like, I want to watch this guy pitch in the ACC. You know what I mean? So outside of just SEC only, Tommy White could be the face. And if LSU has the face of baseball again, it's unbelievable. But Tommy White could be that guy this year. There was a podcaster thing he did on Mic'd Up. I don't know if you know them, with Mikey Matuk. They do their local radio show in Baton Rouge, and Tommy White, which is basically like, of course I get nervous in big moments. He goes, but I love it. He goes, that's what I'm here for. I love the pressure. I love the spotlight. Of course I get a little bit nervous, but you tighten up and you play better. So that's the guy that could become the face. Like, I love those little nuggets like that, like I said, Braden Montgomery, if he figures it out on the mound and continues to hit, that guy could easily become the face of college baseball. You know, it usually comes from the SEC. That's just the most focused on, most viewed, most paid attention to conference in the league. So, yeah, Calianone, obvious answer. Braden Montgomery could be one, but I think Tommy White could be a dude. So we'll see. We'll see how he handles the pressure, the spotlight. If he handled it, oh, it's going to take off.
Dimitri, is there a non-conference series you're most excited about right now when you look at the schedule? We got Florida, Miami, of course, South Carolina, Clemson's a big one. Is there a non-conference series early on that jumps out to you as, or even a non-conference matchup, midweek matchup? I mean, Texas A&M and Texas play each other, of course. When you think of the best non-conference matchups in college baseball, is there one that jumps out? I mean, I think that Florida-Miami series, that might be the series of the year.
So I'm a Miami guy. I love the Hurricane. I'm always Miami. I'm not high on them this year. I'm really worried about them this year. But that Florida-Miami series always has baggage, always has drama, it always got shit that be handled. I mean, you saw last year, one of their guys in Florida did the U, broke it on his knee. They skull drug him on Sunday. But it was a great series Friday, Saturday. It was super tight, back and forth. Sunday, they skull drug him, and Calianone did a little middle finger right around third base. You know, the stuff you love to see. Florida, Miami. You said Texas A&M are playing a
I
weekend
think they're
series.
playing a midweek. They're in a
Oh,
midweek.
I was about
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, midweek.
Yeah.
That will be a weekend series starting next year when Texas is in the league. Yeah, which will be a blast.
So I haven't gone through the score schedule a whole bunch in terms of picking out, but I'm looking here. Texas, I mean, obviously you got the Globe Life, the college showdown in Arlington this weekend or opening weekend, which would be a lot of fun.
Do you like the tournaments? Do you like those early season tournaments? Are you a fan of them?
I do.
Yeah.
I do. I think it's a mini regional. I think it's like a early season regional. It really shows team, you don't have your home dugout. Sometimes if you're the one seed, of course you're hosting, but you're not allowed to use your locker rooms as much as you would normally use. So it's kind of like that neutral feel, postseason regional feel, and it gives you a good measuring stick on how teams play outside of their home ballpark, outside of their comfort zone with other great teams. So that's kind of I like them. I mean, it spices it up. You can watch Tennessee play three different teams on a weekend instead of the same team. So yeah, I do really like them.
Dimitri, that next wave of SEC teams, when you look at the top 25 and just kind of look at the SEC power rankings as a whole, Tennessee, Vanderbilt, Texas A&M, you mentioned Alabama, South Carolina, a team that was 2 wins away from Omaha last year. Who do you like of those to sort of ascend to the top of the SEC? Is there going to be one of those out of that group that you're high on, that you're buying stock in as, hey, they're going to surprise some people? Maybe one of those is as an East or a West winner, right? I mean, I remember, what was it, 2 years ago, Texas A&M won the SEC West. It was like, who could have seen that coming? So of that next group, that quote unquote next tier, if you will, who do you look at and say, watch out for these guys?
So we both know the SEC West is the gauntlet. It's just the gauntlet. And the East, South Carolina, Tennessee, Vandy, and Florida, all really good teams. So to pick a team like South Carolina or Tennessee to come up to the top, I mean, South Carolina, they could have done it last year. They had everything going. They had a monumental collapse at the end. I mean, they swept Florida at home. They were rolling. I mean, dude, everybody was like, put the number. We even said it. Put the number 1 next to their name. Ethan Petrie hit that ball out. Paul Steen. So it can happen in any moment. A team just gets hot and they roll. I'm a Vitello guy. I like Tony V in the Vols. I think if I was going to pick a team that's not in the like top 3, top 4 category, it would be Tennessee to take over the SEC East again. I said Alabama. I'm not too high in them right now. A&M, they could be great, or they could just be middle of the pack. You never know. So I'll put it on Tennessee. That could be my team that could surprise people and be at the top.
Most underrated team in the SEC, Dimitri. I mean, I think about teams that weren't the top 25. Auburn, Kentucky. I guess maybe you've mentioned Mississippi State is one that you feel like people are sleeping on. But, when you speak on the depth of the league and teams that could really compete, and we talk about those in the top 10, top 25. But, I mean, I think an Auburn team, Auburn club, that I don't know what Butch Thompson and company have to do to get respect, because every year they're slept on, they're underrated, and then they're hosting a regional. It just seems like every year that's what's happening.
Don't get me wrong, I like Auburn. Butch Thompson is built consistency down there on the plane. I mean, that guy. There was a graphic ESPN did last year during the game, and it was like Auburn before Bush got here, Auburn when Bush got here. It was just like black and white. I mean, what the guy's done down there is impressive. I mean, he built a program really quickly. I mean, some guys it takes some years to get something going. The guy has success down there since day one. So Auburn, of course, we've learned to never sleep on them. They should probably be a fourth, third. I could see them being third in front of A&M in the West. You never know. I mean, Arkansas, LSU, Auburn, A&M, that could be your top four in the West. Kentucky, what a year they had last year from Nick Minjon and them. They had an unbelievable year. Can they do it again? I'd say not quite as good. I mean, you saw they were like the number one RPI team for all of last year. Got through that regional with Indiana. So Kentucky could be good, but I just think I will say that Florida, Vanderbilt, or Tennessee, one of those three teams is going to disappoint. Which one is it? We don't know yet. But I think one of those three teams will disappoint. And that'll give you room for a team like Georgia or South Carolina to kind of get into that upper stratosphere of 1 and 2 in the East.
Dimitri, one of my favorite things you guys do is the mid-major power rankings, right? Showing some love to the mid-majors. And at number 1, you guys have UC Santa Barbara. East Carolina is a familiar name at number 3. I saw a lot of ECU fans, I think, giving you all a lot of grief. East Carolina is not a mid-major, technicalities, whatever. But anyways, when you look at that mid-major top 25, a lot of familiar names on there, a lot of great programs. And when you talk about going to Omaha, and I think it was you guys that post the stat that every 8 years since I think 1999 or something that, a mid-major, or maybe it was outside of 99, but whatever.
84.
Okay, a mid-major has won the College World Series. So 2016, Coastal Carolina was the last one. Who could be this year's Coastal Carolina? Is there a mid-major you look at and say, it's a long shot, but if it's going to happen again, it's going to be this team?
Santa Barbara, Northeastern are probably my top 2. And then it can, hashtag get Cliff Godwin to Omaha. The guy deserves it. It needs to happen. But I don't really want to say East Carolina would be a surprise to make it because they're knocking on the door every year. So Dallas Baptist, but Santa Barbara and Northeastern are probably my 2 favorites to do it. You need a pitch and you need a lineup to hit. They both got them. And then if you want to get a little crazy with it, you could look at, Charleston, Cal State Northridge, UNC Wilmington, UC San Diego, even Irvine. I think Irvine could be really good this year. So we'll see. But hey, watch out SEC, watch out ACC. These teams are coming.
What's Mercer going to do this year?
Shit, I don't know. I haven't. I might be a Mercer alumni, but
I think Ben's really high on the Mercer Bears this year, man. I think I saw he had
He's
Mercer.
always high on the Mercer Bears.
Death, taxes, and Ben being high on them. I think he's actually got Mercer in the Georgia regionals, the 4 seed. So with Florida State, by the way. So that'd be a fun one.
And you remember what happened last time those 3 teams were in that Athens regional?
Yeah. Was it did Mercer win it?
No, Florida State won it, win the Baton Rouge, swept them into to go to the College World Series in 2019. Florida, I mean, Georgia was good that year, and Florida State spanked them.
Well, I remember, too, on a side note, Georgia, I mean, 2020, I think, was supposed to be their year, with Emerson Hancock. And, I mean, they were They were loaded on the
They had
mat.
Wilcox, Hancock. They were loaded.
Unfortunately, COVID robbed Georgia of what could have been a College World Series team. So,
And honestly, it cost oh my God, what's his name? What was the head coach Georgia's name before? Wes Johnson.
dude, I can see him in my head, but I'm just totally forgetting his
Oh
name.
my God, he came down from Kansas
Scott
State.
something,
Anyway,
right? Scott something.
what?
Scott something.
Scott, anyway, that COVID year was his year to save his job. He didn't get that opportunity. That ultimately where the tide started going downward, ending up losing his job. So, hey, it's a tough world out there.
Indeed. Dimitri Kourtis of 11.7 College Baseball Podcast. Dimitri, let folks know where they can check out your work and check out 11.7 specifically.
Yeah, I mean 11.7.com. We've got all kinds of stuff on there. We've got our RPI ranking, conference standing. We'll have content on there, a bunch of preseason stuff. Twitter 11.7 as well. I think we're 11.7 across all social media platforms. We'll be making our all 30 conference picks this upcoming weekend. That'll come out Monday. So yeah, if you guys are interested in any of our stuff, check us out.
Dimitri, appreciate you taking the time, my friend. Happy college baseball season to you and you guys, and we'll definitely do it again soon.
Hey, appreciate it, Chris. Thanks for having me on.